So I always get the same questions from clients on a regular basis. One of them is, do I have to worry about alligators? And the other one is, do I need flood insurance? So in this video, we're going to tackle one of those questions. The alligators are probably not too much of a concern, although most all of the ponds around here do have alligators in them. And if you don't mess with them, they probably won't be messing with you. But flood insurance is something totally different. So today we're going to talk with Erin Fleeman from BKS Partners, who is our affiliate under Michael Saunders and Company for insurance. And she's going to talk to us about the new rules that started October the 1st for flood insurance and what FEMA is doing and how now the rates are going to be calculated. So if that's of interest, stick around. I have all the information coming right up.
Don't buy real estate if you experience allergic reactions to happiness, satisfaction, pride, fulfillment, contentment. Stop buying real estate if you don't like community, a sense of belonging, a diversified portfolio. Buying real estate may cause you to shop at hardware stores, furniture stores, and design centers. See your realtor immediately if you experience any of these symptoms.
Hey, it's MarkBoehmig, Michael Saunders and Company. And today in this video, we are honored to be joined by Erin Fleeman, and she is with BKS Partners, and that is our insurance affiliate here at Michael Saunders and Company. And we have new flood rules that are coming into effect, and Erin is going to go over those with us because there's always questions that I get. Do we need flood insurance? Do we need an elevation certificate and those kind of things? But with these new rules, there's going to be new rates, some higher and some lower, but we're going to let Erin talk to us about that. So Erin, thank you for coming and joining us today.
Thank you for having us, Mark. Yes, lots going on in the flood world. So we're excited to be able to share this with your customers and get them educated on what is changing. So let's go ahead and get into the new FEMA Risk Rating 2.0. So a couple things. Why are we having this change? What is going on with FEMA? Well, since the 1970s, when the FEMA was developed, they have never changed the actual way that they rate flood policies. They've had rate changes, but they've not actually changed what they look at. So FEMA has actually collected about $60 billion in premium since the 1970s, but they've paid out over $96 billion. So we are definitely in need of change. So we're really hoping that this new program will make us more actuarially sound and make sure that the appropriate properties are paying the right premiums. So when is this process going to change? Well, it's already begun. October 1st, for brand new policies that are being purchased, the new rates went into effect October 1st. Anyone that is going to be renewing is going to see these changes April 1st. Now, any of the major changes are not going to take effect immediately on those renewal policies because they are going to be capped at an 18% increase per year. So nothing going to drastically change with the rates of current policies right off the bat. Now, there is a window of period where you have the option to stay under the old rating or move to the new rating, whichever is going to benefit you the most. And that window is between October 1st and March 31st of next year. After that date, we are going to start moving over to that FEMA 2.0 rate, no option to make a choice between the 1.0 or 2.0. Also, with this new program, assumptions, especially for those buyers purchasing properties and the sellers already had current coverage, there is a way to assume that policy so that you have a very gradual transition and that you get grandfathered to that 18% cap in the rate changes for the policies. Now, what's changing? What is FEMA looking at now? Well, the different zones like A and V and X and B and C, all these different zones. It used to be that B, C, and X had set rates and that they were just one rate, one shoe fits all. Now those zones are only going to matter for lenders and whether or not they require you to carry flood. A and B zones will be mandatory. B, C, and X will still be optional. But there will be no set rates for those B, C, and X zones. They are going to be looked at either high-risk zones, X zones, or low-risk X zones, and they'll each have their own appropriate rate for their property. Also, FEMA is going to start looking at things that are more measurable, like distance to coast, the storm surge possibility, cost to rebuild, things that are more measurable that we can really say, okay, this property really isn't at risk. And we don't need to be charging the same premium for this property that's inland versus another property that's closer to the coast. Another good news about this is that no more elevation certificates are required in order to rate a flood policy. So for those properties that we just can't find one, or we're on a last minute crunch and we don't have one, we can get you a policy without that. However, we still recommend obtaining it in most scenarios as it may improve your rate.
Hey, Erin, can I ask you something about that?
Yeah.
If somebody just wants to get insurance to get covered, can they go back afterwards and get a elevation certificate and then have the rate lowered?
Absolutely. We can always take it back to the underwriter and say, hey, we located this information. It looks like it betters us, and they will amend the policy.
Great, thanks.
Excellent, yeah. So some of the things that we're going to need that we didn't need in the past to rate a flood policy, we'll need to know, is it frame construction or masonry construction? That's going to play a factor, and it never did before. Overall, the square footage, what is the footprint of the building and how does that impact the rate? A very large home that is 2 stories has less of a footprint versus a home that is a 1-story that's spread out. Is there an elevator? A lot of times we didn't know this information, and elevators do make a difference in the flood waters and how they flow around the home. We're also going to be looking for detached structures on the property, but we're only going to be concerned with things that have 4 walls and a roof. So maybe a detached garage or a workshop. Also, if you have machinery or equipment that is elevated above the 1st floor, we find some homes that have the AC and equipment up on the roof. You are going to get compensated in your rate for having the machinery elevated. Also, the building replacement cost is something that FEMA is going to take into account. The homes that are higher in cost or higher to rebuild will share a little bit more burden of the premium. Now, what happens if the FEMA 2.0 rate isn't, good for you or good for your property? Well, we have access to private markets. In private markets, we do find that typically they can be more competitive than the National Flood Insurance Program. They can also offer you a lot higher coverage. The flood insurance program is maxed out at $250,000 on the building and $100,000 in contents. But if you want to insure your home up to $750,000 or even $2 million or higher, the private flood markets can accommodate that under one policy rather than having to buy 2 separate policies, one through FEMA and one through the excess. You can also get a lot more comprehensive coverage, replacement cost on contents, coverage for the pools and detached structures. Also, if you get displaced from your home and you have to live somewhere else, FEMA doesn't currently provide you any loss of use coverage where private market can. Also, if you have to bring your home up to code, the private market will give you some increased cost of compliance coverage. And everybody's probably aware that there's usually a 30-day wait when starting a FEMA policy. Private markets, the waiting period is much shorter, sometimes as short as 10 days. So you don't have to forego coverage on a new purchase, especially when you're buying cash and you have that 30-day wait imposed. In BKS, we have a lot of proprietary options that we can go over with you. So if we can go have an opportunity to speak with you and discuss your flood risk on your property, we'd be happy to do so.
Well, that's really good information. Can you give me an idea? I think maybe you had said something the other day about rates where somebody had a rate through the FEMA and then they have private rate, and the private rate was significantly less than what it was through FEMA. Can you?
Yeah, there was one
specific
specific client that I had, and actually it was one of the comparisons of what happens when you have continuous coverage under this new property or new policy with FEMA. So if I were to quote this policy for this client right out of the gate, new purchase, the rate was about $4,500. But I asked the client, have you explored the option with the sellers of asking for a copy of their policy? And they said, no. Well, I said, go see if you can get a copy. Once they were able to provide us with the continuous coverage, we were able to lower that rate for the same coverage down to $1,064. So that continuous coverage played a huge role in that. Now, secondly, we went in and looked at the private options. Now, he was maxed at that $250,000 on the building, but he really wanted more coverage. So we did go to the private option, and we ended up in about the mid-2000s, but we were able to insure it at a higher value and provide a lot more bang for the buck. So
good information.
To look at.
One of the other questions I have is I've sold a lot of property on the islands like Anna Maria on canal homes and things like that. But in Lakewood Ranch, which is typically an X flood zone, what we used to call X, I guess we still do call it X. Do you find that typically in the Lakewood Ranch area, you probably don't need flood insurance? Would that be an assumption that we could say?
I always say that, we're in Florida and every property has some sort of flood risk, and it's either a higher risk or a lower risk. And I always like to at least provide you the information and give you food for thought. I do find that the Lakewood Ranch properties are at a lower risk. They're in those B, C, and X zones. You rarely find a high risk zone out there. And so you can look at, do you want to carry minimal coverage? Do you want to forego it? I can show you the probability of flood loss for that particular property and show you what FEMA has said the history of that area has been. And really, it's up to you, but you will get a very cost-effective policy in Lakewood Ranch. It's pretty there.
And one other question. Can you tell us exactly what flood is? I know that's kind of a funny question, but I think I remember you giving an example of a fire hydrant one time. So what does, if you're looking at an insurance policy, and excuse me if I'm being negative on the insurance people, but it's like, okay, how are we going to get out of this? Well, what I want to know is how is it that the homeowner is going to look at it to know that they're covered for what would be called flood?
That's an excellent question. I get that a lot because a lot of people say my bathtub overflowing or something pipe breaking from inside. So a flood is actually going to be rising water that occurs outside of the home and comes into the home. And you yourself are not going to flood alone. So it must be two or more properties, and a property could be considered you and the street, you and another property, or 2 or more acres of land that are underwater. So it does have to meet those thresholds. Flood does also include like mudslides and things like that. I know we don't see those in Florida, but there are, it's any of those natural disasters that are going to start on the outside coming in. Now, you mentioned a fire hydrant. Yes, we did have a business where someone backed into the fire hydrant and the fire hydrant was able to produce enough water to inundate the building as well as another structure. And so it was considered a flood.
Got it. Got it. So I know that can be kind of tricky at times. So Erin, I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us here this morning. BKS Partners is an affiliate with Michael Saunders and Company. We have, so when someone comes to us and they want to do title and mortgage and insurance, all of those types of services are under our umbrella for Michael Saunders and Company, and BKS is our partner for the insurance part. Now, I'm going to put a description down below in the description area with contact information for Erin. So if you want to have questions or if you want to get a rate quote, not on just flood or any other type of homeowners casualty insurance, she'll be glad to give you an estimate. Erin, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
All right, take care. Well, I hope you got good information from that video there with Erin. She is a top-notch agent. She's always available to answer questions, whether I have coverage with one of my clients through her or not. She's a very good source of information. And if you got value out of this video, just click that little subscribe button, ding the little bell every time I put up a new video. You'll be notified. And I do get calls every day from people either wanting to buy or sell their homes here in Lakewood Ranch, and I'd be happy to do the same for you. Mark Boehmig, Michael Saunders and Company.